Okay, I think, thank you once again, Professor Dennis Truax. It was a difficult pronounce maybe. Today we have the another dialogue with the JSC President, and today's our guest is President of ASCE, Professor and Dr. Dennis Truax. Here we have the Professor Truax with us. Then I start with asking President Dennis Truax to give us some short self-introduction so that our JSC member can know you more.
Be happy to. As you've already mentioned, I have an academic or had an academic position. I have been in academia in some capacity for 5 decades. I became a faculty member at Mississippi State University in the summer of 1980 and gradually moved up the ranks from assistant professor to professor. Held that last title for a substantial part of my career and until I retired at the end of May in 2021. The last 15 years that I worked with the university, I also, or in addition, became the department head of what is now the Richard A. Rula School of Civil and Environmental Engineering. During my tenure, I helped get the department endowed, converting it to a school. I changed the programs, I expanded and focused on the needs of the community, the region I was working on. And so I expanded programs. That resulted in substantial increase, over a 300% increase in student enrollment within my department. I was able to increase the financial support for the department from a roughly $1.5 million US dollars to just over $33 million US dollars by the time I completed my work, and added to the faculty. But I guess the one thing that I'll be known most for at the university is the fact that I spearheaded a program that resulted in the construction of the Richard A. Rula School of Civil Engineering building, a building that's roughly 75,000 square feet, roughly 70,000 usable. The other 7,000 is utilities and space and non-usable area. And that was opened just before I retired, which is why I retired, at least in part. As far as ASCE is concerned, I spent 26 years of my academic career as a faculty advisor. 3 decades ago, I started national service. Previous to that, I'd worked at the local state level, holding the office of president of my section. And then in, as I say, 1990, I started working on national committees related to professional development, program development, career guidance, sustainability, diversity. And then in 2000, I went on the board as a director. Later, I went back on the board as treasurer, and arguably I'm back on the board now as president, having served a year as president-elect, and I'll serve another year as past president. My area of interest is environmental engineering. I have been preaching sustainability and trying to champion the issues of climate change for most of my career. Something I actually became interested in my high school years. Environmental protection, environmental pollution, elimination of hazardous materials like DDT, and worked as a high school student even then. But that carried on then to where I am today. And of course, what we're championing is a real interest in and trying to help educate the general citizenry, not just engineers, and certainly not just civil engineers, that climate change is something that we can address, and it's something we must address, and the time to address it is now, because the better time to have addressed it was yesterday, not tomorrow.
Okay, yeah, thank you very much. Yeah, so that we can know what's your professional background and also how you have been involved in the ASCE activities. Thank you very much. Then, yes, my first questions are related further to know that ASCE itself. I know ASCE is quite a big academic or professional organization. Yeah, number of members is quite big, much bigger than our Japanese Society of Civil Engineers. My first question is, as a nature of civil engineers, we have expert or engineer from the governmental, industrial, and academic sectors. Yeah, this is kind of the civil engineering specific nature. Do you have any idea what is the membership number-wise ratio, governmental, industrial, and academic sectors?
That's an excellent question. We do have, in round numbers, about 150,000 members.
Yeah.
Some of those are student members, and some of those are life members. And but in terms of the distribution of membership, we actually have the academic fraction, because the number of or academically assigned individuals is obviously smaller than in most other cases. That academic fraction runs about 15%. The next smallest group would be the industrial engineers, and they run somewhere in the neighborhood. And when I say industry, I'm talking about individuals that principally are working in construction, civil construction, or some forms of construction, though the single largest employer of civil engineers in the United States happens to be Boeing Aircraft. So within that group, we have roughly 25%. And then the remaining 60% is divided up almost uniformly, but not quite. We really have about another 25% in the government area, local, state, and federal, in a number of agencies ranging from what you would normally think of as civil engineering, Department of Transportation, Environmental Protection Agency, but we also have members of our organization who are in the Department of Homeland Security, Department of Interior, National Resource Conservation Service, U.S. Forest Service, as well as the CIA and the FBI.
CIA, FIB.
Yeah, and then the last piece, of course, would be the consulting area, or what we call the private side. That last fraction, I think we're up to what, 35% now, would represent the individuals who are the consulting engineers, though some consulting engineers work as city engineers or county engineers by contract. Their principal activities are in the private sector.
I see. Well, it's situation is quite different. Academic sector, I think about same figure in the JSC, but member from government sector quite smallest ratio, I guess. Then majority part is coming from the industry, construction company and consultant, design consult company, so on. So I can see some differences. So which means ASCE is in a way, it's quite influential to the governmental sector. I don't know. It's a question.
Actually, we have been quite successful in working with a number of governmental agencies. This year in particular, we've been working very closely with the U.S. Army Corps of Engineers. I have been part of 2 different conferences that they hosted and spoke to advocate for water security and environmental research related to mitigation of climate change and developing sustainable infrastructure. We have aligned with a number of other agencies in similar ways, and because of that, we've also had the good fortune for over 2 decades now to be a trusted source for the U.S. Congress and the President of the United States. So we work with them as well. In fact, my successor, Maria Lehman, who'll be becoming president at the end of October, and past President Norma Jean Mattei, a good friend of mine as well, who is a faculty member at the University of New Orleans. Maria is mostly construction and sustainability programs at GHD. Norma Jean's a structural engineer with a long background in Mississippi River management programs, and they both been appointed to the President's new Council on Infrastructure, Sustainable Infrastructure Development, and that was just announced. So we've got a good relationship at that area, and then we've given testimony in Congress as well. So yes,
I see. Yeah, in fact, I remember that early this year, I read the news article relating to the current Biden's plan for coming several years. Then the part of the statement clearly state the ASCE. So even national level governmental plan, ASCE has some contribution. Yeah, it's very surprising to see such a thing.
Yeah, we're quite fortunate in that regard. Early when we started it, we were accused of simply serving ourselves, trying to promote projects that would benefit our members. But it was soon learned that what we were advocating for was projects that protected the health, safety, and welfare of the public, advanced economic development. After all, public works are, in fact, community works, national works. So the same roads, the same rail, the same waterways, the same systems that support a quality of life for individuals also supports commerce, industry, and the health of the country. So that gave us a point. In fact, I failed to mention, but to that point, it's the reason why I had the good fortune to be and the honor to be on the White House lawn when President Biden signed into law the Infrastructure Investment and Jobs Act back on November 15th. Yes.
Right. Thank you. Then I come to the second question. I tried to see more information ASCE from your website, but still I couldn't get a very clear picture.
Yeah, that's
if I look at
I'm sorry.
Yeah, JSC activities, we have various activities like technical or academic or research related discussions, or some publication, of course, and also some continuing education related events. And also we organize regular events like annual conference or so on. ASCE, what is a major activity?
Well, we do all of those and maybe a little bit more. ASCE is focused on supporting the professional and the profession. And so we have programs, for example, our Future World Vision program, which we're actually looking for partners to help fund the program, and I invite you to go to our website. It's futureworldvision.org. No hyphens or spaces, just futureworldvision.org. And that will give you a summary of a 10-year project, roughly 10-year project we've been working on to talk about what the 21st century is going to be. What is a civil project going to look like? What are things that we need to be preparing individuals today in universities and those that are currently practicing so that we can meet the needs of developing sustainable infrastructure? And just briefly, I'm not going to run a video. I'd love to. I'm not going to give you a PowerPoint, but the Future World Vision, the culmination of that was that the subject area experts that we brought into the United States and then talked with via the internet consolidated their thoughts and their information into defining that in the future there are really going to be 5 different types of living environments, and all of them have an urban component because roughly 85% of the population is going to be living in an urban environment by the end of 2050, 2060. So we talked about mega city, a city of 50 million people, and Shanghai likely will be close to that by 2050. We talk about offshore city or floating city as it's actually been taught, but it's not really a floating city, it's offshore. And there are 3 countries right now that are working on an offshore platform concept. United Arab Emirates, Saudi Arabia, and South Korea are all working on offshore city concepts and prototypes. The third was off-world city, and as you probably are aware, the United States is redeveloping a deep space, not deep space, but a space program that will potentially lead to the colonization of Mars, let alone the moon.
Yes.
And so off-world, and then the last 2 would be frozen city because of the environment and a number of other factors, and then rural city, which doesn't exactly sound right, but that's one thing. So that's one activity. The conferences, our upcoming conference has a sustainable component. Each of our institutes have an international conference. We have 9 institutes, and they're well intended. And there's always a sustainable piece to that as well. So we're working. When I say sustainable, I'm talking about 21st century infrastructure, resilient, robust, environmentally sustainable, financially sustainable, longer life. That this is the mantra. This is what we have at ASCE embraced fully is the idea that we need to be building very different systems than we built past. And that integration of systems, the way we advocate for that is we say that people should be we should be creating the right project. We should be doing the right job rather than just doing the job right. The idea is rather than just look at a job in the context of the long and think about ways of making it last longer, ways of integrating other systems into that project that ultimately would be integrated, reducing cost and increasing sustainability. The other thing that we're engaged in, of course, is publications. ASCE's library, with regard to civil infrastructure, is expansive. We have one of the largest libraries that is available to in a variety of ways with regard to civil infrastructure. And we also have a number of policies. Policy 360 specifically targets climate change, but we have large groupings of policies which we act upon. And these policies also give us a voice with government. And then to amplify that voice, we have a program called the Report Card. The National Report Card, the ASCE 2021 Report Card came out, and as a result, at a time when they were negotiating, and I think it was actually March of 21, we launched the card. We use that as a platform with President Biden and with the Congress to get the bipartisan infrastructure bill passed.
Right.
Of the 17 areas that we reported in the report card, and we also added internet into the conversation, but couldn't complete the work on it to add it to the report card. So we had to pull that off for a second. But all 18 areas are built into IIJA. And of the recommendations we built under that, 43 of ASCE's recommendations are written into law or codified as part of the Bipartisan Infrastructure Act. And that's the kind of advocacy we've been able to achieve through policy development. The other programs we have, and I'll lift this up to you, is we've developed what we call a partnership program. It's a program that facilitates corporations and universities and government agencies to support membership in our organization. We have a program that's actually in its infancy, but we have a substantial level of sign-on called the Department of Transportation Partnership Program. This is and the Academic Partners Program is launched and moving forward. We've had a Corporate Partners Program, and then we've also have an Associate Partners Program. Associate Partners is for small firms. Corporate Partners is for large firms, and the distinction is about 50 employees, civil engineering employees. In all these cases and the others we're working on, the individual membership fee is reduced. The benefits are increased, usually in terms of professional development, educational materials for continuing competency as required by many states in the U.S., conference attendance at a reduced rate, publication costs reduced or minimized or shifted, and then again the dues being reduced. So at ASCE we always want to see a win-win. At ASCE we want to make sure that we're supporting the individual in ways that benefits them. And if the professional is benefited, then we understand that the profession and society will benefit as well. And so we use this approach of not just establishing value. We've developed a value portfolio that is quite substantial, but we're also focusing on engagement and bringing the individuals into our organization, not because we necessarily want individuals in our organization, that's always nice, but because we think individuals can become the best version of a civil engineer if they're engaged in taking that value that ASCE offers in a way that enhances their career.
Okay, thank you. I think my next question related to what you have been talking to us. As you said, yes, civil engineering, it's a quite integrated area, but at the same time, we have smaller specific field, like I'm in concrete engineering. Then you have American Concrete Institute. Then probably your field, environmental engineering, also you have separate institutions. Then most of the engineers in the United States, what's their reason to join ASCE? What is their benefit instead of joining their own specific field?
That is an excellent question. And let me add that for us, our dues are generally higher than the dues of the other organizations. And that makes the conversation even more challenging. For example, for me, yes, I'm a member of the American Water Works Association. In fact, I'm a life member. I'm a member of the Water Environment Federation. In fact, I'm a life member, and I'm also a life member of ASCE. There's a couple different things that go on, and this is what we and there are civil engineers who join those other organizations, Institute of Steel Construction, ACI, whatever. And as you acknowledged, within the broad discipline that we have as civil engineers, at the end of the day, we do tend to identify as environmental or materials or structures, and the list goes on. But one of the things that we do at ASCE, of course, is provide an opportunity for integration, because yes, while we can do a lot, say, with talking about concrete, it really comes down to what you use the concrete for. And so if you make yourself too specialized and isolate yourself in one organization that's only focused on one piece of this, then you probably aren't developing into the whole engineer that we need you to become on an international level. And people understand that. We provide, in fact, our conference is probably going to be 2027. We were hoping for earlier, but in 2027, we're actually going to take the institutes, which have been having conferences at unique times and unique places individually. And we're going to bring all the institutes back together at one place, along with our annual conference. And build this together to provide more synergism than we currently do.
Yes.
But what we get from our members is, the individuals that are part of ASCE, is that our advocacy for the profession, our advocacy for the professional in terms of the resources is, and I don't mean this to denigrate any of the other organizations, professional or technical. I'm also a life member and a fellow of the National Society of Professional Engineers. But what they found is that because we represent all facets of our profession and we have an engaged government relations group, we advocate for and provide resources in a way that is unique, that is comprehensive. And that is, I think, the biggest draw that we have.
Yes.
The other piece, I guess, is that is the student organization. Our student chapters are very robust. Where, of course, after COVID, we had a number of challenges because students weren't meeting together and chapters were struggling to maintain activities that provided value. But that gave us an opportunity at the national level to reorganize the student chapters, to facilitate new programs for students, to help make them successful. And we're engaging with the students in a new way to help transition them from university life to the life of a pre-professional and ultimately professional. And that is another piece that we're offering that we're just not seeing with the other organizations. So start early, continue to support the individual, continue to provide value, and that's part of it. But not everybody's going to be an ASCE member. And unfortunately, that's their loss.
Okay. All right.